Hi everyone, my name is Sylvia Kulaga and this is case study 2 on operant extinction. Okay, first thing we're going to do is talk about the client. The client is a 6-year-old male and he is diagnosed with autism. He receives in-home ABA services for 2.5 hours 4 times a week, and that is in the evening after school. The client receives in-home Quran lessons for 1 hour 2 times a week while the ABA services are going on. So therefore the technician is present as well as the BCBA when there is supervision going on. The behavior of concern that we are looking at is elopement during Quran class. And an FA found that the elopement is an escape maintain behavior to avoid reading in the Arabic book. So let's go over extinction. Extinction is defined as behavior change tactic in which reinforcement of a previously reinforced behavior is discontinued, which then results in that behavior to decrease in the future, as stated by Cooper et al. 2020. We also see that operant extinction is defined by Skinner as when reinforcement is no longer forthcoming or response becomes less and less frequent. For instance, let's say there is every time that mom and her child go to a grocery store, the child cries, so mom buys the child a lollipop. The child now learns to engage in crying in order to receive a lollipop from mom. So if mom were to stop buying a lollipop, when the child cries and begins to ignore the crying behavior in the store, the child's crying will eventually decrease because he is no longer being reinforced by getting a lollipop for crying. As stated earlier, we did find that during an FA being conducted, that the elopement behavior is being maintained by escape during the Quran lessons. Therefore, we are going to develop a negative reinforcement protocol. During this negative reinforcement protocol, the client is able to escape the table during the lesson only after reading a certain number of words in that Quran book. Upon escaping the table, the client does not have access to any preferred activities or reinforcement, such as toys, games, activity, or food. Therefore, it is a negative reinforcement protocol. Their criterion is also set where for each session, the number of words needed to be read in order to escape the table will increase after every 3 sessions if that criteria is met. This is very similar to the Vulgarkis and Forte 2015 study where they used feeding escape extinction, in which the child was required to eat a certain amount of bites in order to escape the table, and they used negative reinforcement in place where no access to preferred activities was available upon escaping the table. We also see that the client's elopement is being socially mediated because anytime there is the presence of the Quran teacher, then elopement occurs. And we know that the function is to escape that Quran lesson or reading in that Quran book. Socially mediated contingency or reinforcement is defined as when an antecedent stimulus and or the consequence for the behavior is presented by another individual. Therefore, we see during sessions, when the Quran teacher enters the home for the lesson, the client sees the Quran teacher and runs up the stairs, and then the therapist goes upstairs and directs the client to go downstairs and sit at the table. This would be a socially mediated contingency. Let's also talk about differential reinforcement. Differential reinforcement is providing reinforcement for one response class while withholding reinforcement from another response class, and specifically providing reinforcement contingent on a behavior other than the problem behavior or the problem behavior occurring at a reduced rate, withholding reinforcement for the problem behavior, and differential reinforcement can be implemented with positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. In addition to the operant extinction intervention that was done, there is also positive reinforcement provided for differential reinforcement of alternate behavior, or DRA. Specifically, we provide 2 visual aids for the client to use during the Quran lesson. The first is a visual help card, where the client learns to appropriately gain attention by either verbally requesting for help or by pointing to the help card, and then positively being reinforced by receiving that help. Subsequently, we also have a visual break card, where the client learns to either verbally request for a break or points to the break card, in which he is then allowed a 1-minute snack break after reading the number of words required while remaining in his seat. This would be providing an unconditioned reinforcer, which is a stimulus change that functions as reinforcement even though the learner has no history of learning it, and that is because there is no history of learning that snacks are a reinforcer when you are hungry. The key point of this is to also make sure that there is an MO of being hungry before the Quran lesson. So therefore, we would work with parents to make sure that no snacks are provided after school. So the client is hungry during Quran. Therefore, the snacks are indeed a reinforcer. Furthermore, we ensure that stimulus control is present by teaching to request for help or for a break, using those visual break cards by teaching least to most prompting. Stimulus control is defined as behavior that occurs more often in the presence of a stimulus, distributed stimulus, than in the presence of stimulus delta, and therefore it is under stimulus control. So we would know that there is stimulus control because the client will request more often when presented with the visual help and break cards than when they would not be present.